Hi, this is Bruce with the Carenado Saab 340. Just a little bit of background. This is for myself mostly because if I don't fly an aircraft very often, I have a lot of choices. I wanted to make sure I could document this visually so that I could easily review it and get on top of it again, and I hope maybe this will do some other people some good too. First of all, just a little bit of background. I'm using P3D version 4.2, Chase Plane, Active Sky, Flight 1 Garmin GTN 750, which we'll see in a minute when we fire it up. Ultimate Traffic Live with 100% general and 100% commercial maxed out, as well as P3D's traffic general and commercial maxed out as well. I like a lot of aircraft in the air, and I'm using Windows 10, GeForce GTX 1070, an SSD drive, and an i5 processor that's overclocked. So, because usually people have a question if it'll run on their system or not, and I just wanted to run through those real quick. If you hit Shift 3, you'll see all of these options available. These are the ones that are visually very attractive. They pop out, and also the door will go up, and they work just great. So just click on the squares and everything happens like it should. The tow car and static elements aren't so important to me, but you can guess what they do. Popping into the interior of the aircraft now, just a brief note, these yokes obviously can block a little bit of the visibility, so if you click the top, it'll vanish and go away, which is what I typically do. And then running here to the overhead, we want to go ahead and get this thing fired up. So, well, first of all, let's kick it back to the brakes. Brake on here, obviously a good idea. And then we're going to look at the left and right battery. It's right here in this block of third column pieces. It says LBAT, RBAT. You just want to click it to on in both cases. Then strobe and beacon lights on down here. And then you'll click the left and right bleed valves, which are here in the fourth column in the middle. Put it up to auto, click it to reset, it'll go back to auto. Do that on both sides. Then the left and right generator reset switches, which are down here, and we'll hit reset there and reset there, and it clicks back to on. You'll need to turn on your avionics, which is just above the batteries, the DC electric section. You want left avion, right avion for avionics on. You don't need to turn on the ESS avion because that's really if you're going to have emergencies. And I don't have any of those pre-planned, so that's not going to happen. We know the doors are closed. We're going to look now at the engine condition levers. They're on start. Interesting thing about these condition levers is you'd think you could pull it back to fuel off, but you can't. Carenado put a click spot there beside the condition note there, so if you left click to the left of the condition, it drops to fuel off. If you left click to the right of it, it drops to off. If you click on the condition lever, it'll pop back up to start. When I first start this, the condition levers are seemingly always to the max. Yeah, just bring them all the way back down to start. It makes the start simple, and you don't have to watch for any percentages or anything like that to get started. So that's just to get things warmed up here. So the condition levers are at start, the power levers are at idle, and now we're going to go ahead and start the left engine. We'll pop up here to the overhead. The start switch is in the second column just above the interior lights section under engine. You left click on to the L, and as we shall see, the left should begin. There we go. And it should settle down right now. It's just settling in. It should drop down now pretty soon, any second. And then we'll go ahead and we'll start the other one. There, it's coming down, it's settling in. So then we'll go ahead and right click on the start switch, and the other one will start up for us. There we go. So back into the interior pilot and command position. You can see the right engine here is settling in. Very good. There we go. Then we drop down to this lower section here, even lower than that, I'm afraid. There we go. We want to turn the CTOT on, it's called. It's the constant torque system. I doubt it works. I haven't seen any evidence that it works. But normally what it does is it advances the power levers to match the torque knob setting, which is here. So it takes the load off the pilot, especially as it's accelerating down the runway, the torque does change with the acceleration. So this keeps an eye on it, so I'll just spin that up to 100, and it'll control some of the torque for me, theoretically at least. And then there's something called auto coursing. We're going to go back up here to the overhead again. Could have done this a little sooner, but now is a good time. The auto coursing is there in case you have an engine out on takeoff or on landing, and it'll feather and reduce the drag of that automatically for you, so it's a better deal. But again, I don't expect to have any hazards in flight. I don't have it set up for that. Now we're going to put the condition levers back into max position here. So that's all set now. We're going to do pitot heat. Pitot heat again is on the overhead. It's way up here, first column near the top. You click it to on, that way your pitot tubes don't ice up and you lose your indicated airspeed in the icing conditions. There shouldn't be anything else here you need to do unless it's raining and then your wipers are here. Other icing, de-icing options, prevention options are right here in the first column. Then going down the second column, yeah, you can pretty much, you can maybe get some self-interest in some other things, but for me, auto coursing is the main event. We've already started our engines, dome lights, annunciator brightness is here, and then we'll just turn on our nav, our logos, wing, and taxi. Then we're going to go down the third column there in a row. All of these are good to go. I'll just turn our seat belts and cockpit stereo switch up. We're going to hit the recirc on both of the air conditioning units there, and we've already set up our bleed valves, so that's good. Other than the wiper on the right for a rainy day, the overhead should be all set to go. So that's the general sense of things. Cabin pressure dials are right here in this area just above the condition levers. And so if I'm going to pull these condition levers back so you can see everything. Right here it's on auto. That's a great place to leave it. You'll want to set the altimeter here, this gauge here, to the altimeter setting of your landing site. So if it's 2.9 or 9 or 2, just go up to 229.9, and then that'll be good. And then this one sets the altitude of the destination airport. So if it's at 200, then we're going to crank it here to 200, and that'll help adjust all that. If you want to increase or decrease the rate of the cabin change, you can do that with this button. It coincides obviously with the open or less open switch there. Anti-skid is here. I'm going to go ahead and turn that on now. There is a prop sync, but we won't activate that until we're in the air. Your pitch is here. You can see it's in the green. There's really no need to increase it. It seems to be preset in a good spot from what I've found in the past. So that's all very, very good. So we got our cabin pressure, we got our trims checked. We also want to have 7 degrees of flaps for takeoff. That's in this gauge here. I'm going to put back to the pilot command view. That is again over here. So we'll just take it down a notch, down to 7. So here it is. Looks good. All right. I like to look around sometimes just for a change of pace. Let's see, we got props, RPMs high, so the condition levers are all the way up. I think I might have dropped them back a smidge, yeah, when I was showing you this piece for the cabin pressure. The autopilot and flight director, that's all, you're very familiar. Heading, vertical speed, indicated airspeed, half banks, nav, climb. Climb is interesting. I just choose to use vertical speed with a vertical climb rate of about 160 knots, but if you do want to choose the climb, it's got a steeper rate of climb and 140 knots, and it maintains that 140 knots, adjusting the rate of climb as you're gaining altitude. VNAV, I've not used it before. Altitude, if you push that altitude, it will level off at the altitude you pressed it. If you enter in, say for instance, 17,000, it will level off at 17,000 with the vertical speed or climb, and then this will light up when you get there, so you don't need to hit it at 17,000. And that's the approach button for ILSs and that sort of thing. If you want this altimeter to run in 500s and not thousands, then I think it's a right click. Yeah, right click on it and it goes into the hundreds. Right click it again and it goes back into the thousands. So that's a little less confusing in that regard once you get that ironed out. This is where my Flight 1 Garmin GTN 750 is placed. And if you click the upper bar on that box, it succeeds in a pop-up, and if you've not seen one before, generally speaking, this is what it looks like. You could enter in all of your waypoints and things like that. I'm just going to put Pittsburgh in here, just so you can generally see how this plays out. Go back, hit the map.
System test OK.
That's the GTN talking to us. And then we can just scroll the mouse wheel back, and you can see that the magenta line there is directly to Pittsburgh with no other waypoints in between, which is not realistic, but we would enter in all the other details and it would kick us through. So that's what the appearances are. You can adjust those. And here you can change your comms. So in like 123.8 maybe, and hit XFIR, you'll see up here, it'll switch. So you can change your COM 1 that way. The nav 2 is over here, not nav 1, I found out, at least how I've got it set up. Whoops, so I'm going to go backspace. Let's try 108, just a simple 108, and hit XFIR, and you'll notice it'll swap it out for me. And then you see that just popped up over here in the display on the co-pilot side. The pilot side, the VOR1, you would set in a different way. So anyway, that's just a little bit of background on that. Again, the outer ring would do the numbers left of the decimal, the inner ring does the numbers to the right of the decimal, and if you want to switch them here, you just click that little gray switch bar, and away you go. The on or hold are your only two options in both cases. This section here is a little bit different for me. I wasn't finding that on other aircraft, but here it is. DH is the decision height that normally automatically is set at 200 feet. So you shouldn't have to change the decision height. The intensity control knob is the INT, and it has two rings on it. The outer ring will lighten or darken the compass rose down here, and then the inner ring will lighten or darken your artificial horizon there. So those can be adjusted as you like. The sector switch is going to affect the details down here. You can go from rose to sector, which is your arced compass, and then there's a range here, or you can go into what they call RR, and if it's on RR and you've got the DEV button pressed, you can get map information or weather on there. So that's how that plays out. So on sector or RR, that DEV can come in handy. Data, DTA, is all the data around it. I'm not sure why anybody would want to turn it off. The bearing is for your automatic direction finder. This one here, I'm going to zoom in so it's more easily seen. There we go. Second course is a green. That's your VOR2 from over here. Otherwise, this blue is your primary. The ET starts a clock, and the clock is down here. If you press it again, it freezes it. If you set it again, it resets it. So we'll just let it run. Flight director, there, magenta, and then RA test is your ground radar test. You'll see a flashing DH and a 50 down in the bottom right-hand corner. That shows you that it's working. So other than that, if you want to ever bring these to the fore and have them pop out, you can't do that by clicking the bottom. Click the top, and both will show up. And here you've got GPS indicated. You got true airspeeds 3, must be the wind blowing. The ground speeds, obviously not there yet. We're heading for the next waypoint, which in this case is Pittsburgh. 083 heading GPS, 125 nautical miles direct line as the crow flies, and time to go. But obviously that's some information that's going to come up a little bit later. So hopefully that helps explain some of these things. Oh, one last thing, the select knob is very important. It starts off on nav 1, you wheel it to the right, and you get nav 2, nav, and GPS. So you can just cycle through those as you wish. And I just start off on nav 1 because I'm going to start off with a heading indicator. So other than that, you'll see right away that you cannot change your heading here on, because usually there's a little wheel or something right here. So what you need to do is realize that it's located down here between yourself and the co-pilot. There's the heading switch, there's the VOR2, VOR1. You can also change your heading with this bigger one, and then there's a little strip of ribbed wheel here in the middle. That's your vertical speed to descend or ascend more rapidly or slowly, whatever you choose to do. and there's a pop-up for this. Shift 2 will bring it up for you, and I find that's the easiest way to get this done. So let's go down through here. This is your yaw damper switch on, off, autopilot. It won't engage until we're in the air. Your ADF is down here. It's going to run in the thousands on the outer wheel and the ones here on the inner wheel. So you may wonder, well, where's the tens? If you right-click the outer wheel, left-click the outer wheel, you get the tens. And then if you left-click the outer wheel again, you get the hundreds. So you can see what I'm doing there. And again, it's very straightforward. Comms, they're what you're used to seeing. Here you've got your squawk codes. This one runs the hundreds, this one runs the tens and fives. And then it's got standby, on, and altitude reporting. So we'll just leave that on standby for now. So we're doing well. Moving down through our checklist pretty rapidly. If we had some transponder code to squawk, we could do it through here as well. So we could just pick something like 4512 and then hit enter, and you'll see it's popping in here. And then if we click on that, we can turn it on, or we can go altitude reporting, and it'll do that for us just through this unit. So that's very handy. Put it back. So there you can see the auto coursing is on low. When you give it enough RPMs, the light over here, high, will come on, and you should expect that. That shouldn't be anything of a surprise. We're not going to taxi out at this time. I just wanted to leave it at that. We've got our altimeter set at, in this case, 2992. You can adjust it here with the wheel. This one also sets with that one. You don't need to do it manually, but you could if you wanted to. That's your backup. You'll be climbing out. You'll be rotating at about 115 knots when your maximum takeoff weight. You could maybe take off a little sooner if you're lighter. You pitch up 10 degrees. You get your gear up before you hit 150 knots. Your gear up at about 500 feet or 130 knots, thereabouts, and then you accelerate to 160. And I find that, just an advanced conversation here, I've found that retarding these control levers doesn't change anything in our gauges that I can see. But if you do pull back on your power levers, your torque will reduce. So that is responsive. So you can keep an eye on those. Other than that, you'll maintain a 160 knots rate of climb and about 1500 to 2500 rate of climb on your vertical speed. Unless, of course, you hit the climb feature, and that'll max it out for you. And then when you're in the midst of a climb and away from the field, you can turn your auto coursing off and your prop sync on. And the rest is pretty straightforward. So hope you've enjoyed this. Hope it's been a help to you. And have a good time flying.